If you got into an arm wrestling competition, you could probably drag a couple of girls out of the stands that would beat him.
He was always dead last in the conditioning drills. He benched $140. I mean, you almost don't need barbells. You just do the bar.
I said, this guy looks like an anorexic rock star. He's the least athletic-looking person. These little pipe cleaner arms. He just did not look like a Gordie Howe, a Bobby Orr, a Rocket Richard.
But there was something about him that he just had this sixth sense. He knew people. He could see shadows. He could feel movement. He said it was almost like having deja vu all the time.
The average guy in the league thinks one play ahead. The superstars think 2 plays ahead. And Gretzky thinks 3 plays ahead.
I played on a line with 2 other guys, and our assignment was to shut him down. We would get to the bench, and we would find ourselves arguing. You had him. No, you had him. I handed him off to you. Remember when we crossed the blue line? Wayne would disappear and reappear. Wayne was thinking the game.
It seems that there's a trap door in the ice. And suddenly, the trap door opens, and Wayne surfaces. Now you see him, now you don't.
Here's Gretzky again. Trying to slide one over for Coffey. Coffey back to Gretzky. Scoring again.
Gretzky was the ultimate geographer in terms of where to be in the right place at the right time on the ice.
If you look at a grandmaster in chess, they can look at a chessboard. They don't see 20 individual pieces. They see a sequence. That's the same thing that's going on with Gretzky.
He'd be able to count players subconsciously, I believe, as he progressed up the ice. And some of the examples that we've seen, his ability to read the play, get players coming late, or the famous turn-up play inside the blue line. He was always delineating the number of people that were involved in a particular play.
He was in another league. He was in another universe as far as the other players were concerned. I remember an opposing center lining up against him. And just before the referee would drop the puck, I was saying, "Could I have your stick after the game?"
He was the consummate playmaker. Had he never scored a single goal, his 1,963 assists would still make him the league leader in career points.
He said, I've worked on this all my life. He said, every practice I go to, I work on the passing. You try and lift them over sticks. You try and bank them off the boards. Sometimes even banks them off the net or banks them off other people.
The idea of standing behind the net with the puck. It was very much different than what we'd seen in the past, and he made an art out of it.
I can't recall another player right now that set up behind the net like he did. He could set up plays, read the play, and outpatient the opposition many times, get them to lurk or jump out of position, and then as soon as that happened, he'd find that open man, and the next thing you know, they'd have a scoring opportunity.
Gretzky looking in front, Robitaille scores!
Other teams were afraid of him, so they would back off. And when they backed off him, he was able just to pick him apart and destroy him in that manner.
Wayne never lost the humility of a small-town upbringing. Canadians do not like people to get too full of themselves, too cocky. Wayne never did that.
His genuineness really kind of rubbed off on the team, and he became a leader because of the way he treated people. He was so much more mature as a hockey player and as a person than we were at the same age.
Walter Gretzky is sort of the quintessential hockey father that you like to read about and seldom see. And it started with Wayne when he was 5 years old, when he put the skates on him and took him down in the Nith River.
Wayne learned to swim there, he learned to skate there. Everything was there at the farm. The first goal he ever shot against was Grandma Gretzky. She used to sit in her lazy boy chair at the farm, and he would fire tennis balls at her feet.
Wayne's father's a very special man. He'd take them out and he'd have them work out, and he told them that don't waste the time and guys, do something constructive. Jump over the sticks, go around the pylons, learn how to shoot the puck. There was always seemingly a purpose to what he was doing. And he was blessed with at least one of the children who couldn't get enough of it. The harder he asked him to work, the harder Wayne worked at it.
Guts was not that fast. In fact, he was slow. And not that strong. In fact, he was weak. And not that big. In fact, he was tiny. But he just was so well schooled in hockey.
I would have him fire the puck, and then I would show him how everybody goes after the puck. Now watch. I'm I'm going to go where it's going to be, not where it's been. So he'd fire it along there, and I'd cut across, and I'd be right there where it was going to be. So you can teach anticipation.
The lessons that Wally taught Wayne, I think, really were ingrained in Wayne's consciousness. And because of it, Wayne has held himself with such esteem and class. He never wanted to let his parents down.
Pure talent and desire lifted the prodigy to organized hockey at the age of 6. From there, it was a short leap to full coast-to-coast fame.
He lived a life like none of us can imagine. He could skate before he could walk. And he became this sort of human icon in Canada. At 10 years old, he was swamped by other 10-year-olds for autographs. By 13, he was on National Hockey Night in Canada. So he's grown up sort of like John F. Kennedy Jr. He's been the Prince of Canada.
In his 9 and 10-year-old year, he scored 195 goals. And the people in the town said, yeah, well, Willie gets in the next year, he'll never score 195 again. And they were right. The next year, he scored 378.
I used to come home and I'd score a goal and I'd be doing cartwheels, and he'd come home and they'd win 13-1. I'd say, how'd you do? He says, we won. I said, did you get any goals? Yeah. How many? 11. And that's the way he was.
What his father told him at a very, very young age, that this is bigger than you, Wayne, that you can't have any bad games, Wayne, that people come to see you for hundreds of miles and you got to give them your best all the time. And intuitively, Wayne Gretzky understood that it was not enough just to play on the ice, that he had to be charming, that he had to be sweet.
But Gretzky's gentle nature could not always deflect what was often cruel treatment.
Parents of other kids were terribly jealous. They would come with stopwatches and they would go to the coach afterwards and say, Gretzky played this much and my son only played that much.
No kid should be able to score that many goals. And what the hell's wrong with you?
Wayne would come off the ice and he'd be in tears from what they would say to him.
The city kind of drove me out of there as a youngster. I really got to a point where I didn't like being Wayne Gretzky at 14 years old.
To relieve the invasive pain of microscopic scrutiny at home, Gretzky escaped to play junior B hockey in Toronto, 60 miles away.
When I moved away from home, I spent the first 2 months lying in a bed crying every night saying, what am I doing here? But what happened was I developed some real special relationships that are very unique to me because they were friendships made out of friendships, not because of who I was. And maybe in my life, it was the last time that I was able to develop friendships for who I was and not what I was.
First seeing Wayne play as a 16-year-old, he offensively already was as good as any National Hockey League player.
If we scored 10 goals, he got 5 and assisted on the rest. If we scored 6 goals, he got 4 and assisted on the other 2.
But the distance from home wore on him. He missed his family and his friends.
Parents come to me all the time and they try to get me to tell their kids that, in order to be a successful hockey player, you need to move away from home like you did at 14. And I tell parents that's not why I moved away from home. I moved away to become a normal, everyday child at school with friends. But when I look back at it at the time, obviously it was devastating to me.
In his only year in the WHA, Gretzky compiled 46 goals and 64 assists. After the season, the Oilers joined the NHL when the younger league folded.
A lot of people said that would be the league where it would catch up to him.
The biggest criticisms were he was too small, he was too slow, he would get beat up, he'd be brittle. All of that was going to conspire against him and make him very mediocre in a hurry.
In his first NHL season, near the end of the schedule, and he and Marcel Dion were going for the scoring title. They come in here for a really big game on a Saturday night in Toronto, and I think he had like 2 and 3. And after the game, he called me to one side, and one of the few times I ever heard him use profanity, he said, "Tell your blankety-blank columnist that this blankety-blank league hasn't caught up to the kid yet."
He had 45 goals in 38 games. And the idea is to see if he could get 50 in 40 games.
Well, I talked to Kevin Lowe at the skate that day, and he says, Gretz told me he's going to get 5.
He's one-on-one with Barber. Looks to the open net. He's got it. Score! 50 goals for Wayne Gretzky in 39 games.
There's a lot of guys that I've played with that have been good players, and they would get in a game where they'd score 2 or 3 points, and they'd almost shut it down. And Wayne is just the opposite. If he got 2 or 3, he wanted 4, he wanted 5, he wanted 6.
Gretzky took it away from him. Gretzky moving in. The shot. He scores! Gretzky 77th of the year. Gretzky has pulverized another National Hockey League record.
I didn't realize what I was doing. I was 21 years old. I was playing on a great team. I was scoring a lot of goals. We were winning every night. I didn't know what I was doing. I just had fun.
I saw him nervous in the playoffs in '83 and '84 because that was the next step to his greatness. All the individual records are great, but he really wanted a Stanley Cup.
Baudelaire up from his defense post. Grabs the ball. There's going to be another time. But here is Gretzky.
I once asked Wayne, what was your greatest moment in hockey? And he said, winning that first Stanley Cup. And I can remember looking down as then NHL President John Ziegler started to hand the cup to Wayne. Wayne almost ripped it out of his hands just to hold it up, to kiss it and hold it high over his head.
I've been fortunate enough to win a lot of individual awards, but those awards meant nothing like this thing. This is the ultimate. You never won a trophy until you won this, and I don't know how to describe it. I waited for 25 years for this.
You haven't really waited all that long compared to a lot of other people.
The 1984 victory over the Islanders was just the beginning of a glorious ride. Gretzky led the Oilers to 4 Stanley Cups in 5 years.
The Edmonton Oilers have won their 4th Stanley Cup championship. They are a dynasty.
It's the biggest trade in sports history. He wasn't a rookie. He wasn't over the hill. He was in his prime. He had set records that no one in any team sport had ever set.
Canada's Prince in Exile proved to be the perfect cure for what ailed the Los Angeles Kings.
It was like the old joke. You'd call the forum and say, what time's the game start? And they'd say, what time can you be here?
Here in Los Angeles, nobody cares about anything, let alone hockey. But all of a sudden, the right people were going, and it was the in thing to do. It all of a sudden went from not being something that anybody cared about whatsoever to a very difficult ticket to get. Let's go to the forum. Let's see the Kings. Let's see the Gretz. Let's see and be seen.
We were bringing Ronald Reagan before the games to give us pep talks. I mean, Sylvester Stallone came before the game to give us pep talks.
People just came out of the woodwork. Gretzky had that real star quality. They knew he was great, nice-looking guy, had a great-looking wife, and he could do something which they appreciate in L.A., which was kick butt and dominate.
Duchesne passing deep to Taylor to Gretzky. He scored! He's done it! Wayne Gretzky, the great one, has become the greatest of them all. The leading scorer in the history of the National Hockey League.
What an impact it made on his team. The sale of jackets, caps, jerseys went from dead last to number 1 of all sports teams.
A succession of star-studded sellouts more than doubled the value of the franchise as the Kings won their first playoff series in 7 years, beating the once indomitable Oilers. In a single season, Wayne Gretzky sold ice hockey to a city built on sand.
He reinvented the Los Angeles Kings and got Hollywood and media corporations involved and interested in hockey, which has carried over until today.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great one, Wayne Gretzky.
He didn't have an agent out there looking to get on Arsenio or get on Letterman. He did it because he knew he had to, but it wasn't something he loved to do. Wayne going to Los Angeles not only saved hockey in California, it saved the NHL.
I remember one day, it was President's Day, my first year in LA. We were playing a 1 o'clock game in LA, and I was driving on the 405 in my convertible, and I had to call my dad, and I said, "You're not going to believe this. I'm on my way to an NHL hockey game. I've got the top down. It's 85 degrees out, and now I got to go to work." My dad started laughing so hard.
When Gretzky arrived in LA, there were 21 NHL teams. By 2000, the league stood at 30, with franchises in Arizona, Florida, Texas, and Georgia.
I can't imagine anybody having done more in terms of selling his sport and
being an ambassador for his game, and being accessible than Wayne Gretzky.
He is the single biggest reason why this sport expanded the way it did. It is a Sun Belt, West Coast, warm weather sport now because of Wayne Gretzky.
Later in 1996, Gretzky landed in New York in search of that elusive fifth Stanley Cup.
I'm thrilled that we were given the opportunity to have Wayne here. If I had one thing that I wish, is that I wish we would have been better the last 2 years that Wayne was here.
I wanted him to continue to play because I felt like he didn't do what he came to New York to do.
I said, why are you quitting? You can still play. He said, you don't understand, Dad. Every year when I go to camp, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and I'm a year older.
My dedication in the off season was always solid. And I just felt that I was getting to a point where maybe that wasn't my top priority. When that happens in your mind, it's time to step back and say, maybe it's time.
Time to say goodbye.
There were guys in the press box with tears in their eyes. All along, I thought to myself, don't do it. Don't quit. And then it suddenly occurred to me that I wasn't thinking about Wayne. I was thinking about me. And I was thinking about all the hockey fans who wanted him to stay, because if he didn't stay, we wouldn't see the miracles anymore.
His final game drew the largest audience in the history of Hockey Night in Canada. After 20 NHL seasons, Gretzky left more than 61 records on the ice.
After everyone had asked and had their questions answered, he sat there in his jersey. He was so reluctant to take that jersey off for the last time. He was still sorry to see the party over.
Gretzky is the Babe Ruth of his sport. Gretzky, as an individual, stood above his contemporaries to an even greater extent than did Michael Jordan.
If you compare a statistic to any other sports, I mean, somebody would have to come next year and hit 95 home runs or something like that. This is definitely the greatest player that ever played the game.
He was more driven than just about any other player, and he was able to conceal his drive behind the sophisticated style of play. But to be able to maintain this high level of excellence, game in and game out, for such a long period of time, to me that transcended the numbers.
You could almost see a smile come on his face the minute he stepped on the ice, because that's where he could be Wayne Gretzky, do what he enjoyed the most.
I think what Gretz did for hockey can never be forgotten. He changed the game. He gave it grace, he gave it space, he gave it speed, he gave it artistry. The further he gets from us, the more we'll see what he did never be accomplished again.
He basically took a league on his shoulders and carried them to a place that nobody, and I mean nobody, 20 years ago would ever have thought hockey would be right now.
He was the last hockey player who came from the game that was part of us.
The focus of the entire hockey world is on Edmonton tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now say these words for the last time ever in this building. Hockey fans, tonight's first star, number 99, Wayne Gretzky.
I've always said that, and I'm not the first person to say this, but he's always been a better person than he has been a hockey player. When you really get to know him, then you know why they call him the Great One.
One of the things that's been interesting is that in May, for the 4 consecutive months, trade with the U.S. has actually gone down from Canada, including that month. It went up 5.7% to other parts of the world. So I wanted to get your perspective on what's the longer-term view in terms of trade from Canada, and then also what would you want to tell our American colleagues here?
Yeah, look, really good question. You have to be
careful about interpreting too much from month-to-month data because there's a lot of noise, a lot of natural fluctuation in that. I think we all are aware, certainly anybody in the airline hospitality business is aware of the decline in Canadian vacation travel to the United States. It's been very dramatic. Look, I'm just gonna put it in this context, just so everyone understands. You know, I think it's fair to say, probably the most pro-American Prime Minister in Canadian history. And I tell people that if